If you're trying to lose weight and lower blood sugar levels, no doubt you've come across health influencers talking about apple cider vinegar. But what if I told you that the hype is overblown? It's misleading and it wastes your time because we don't have strong evidence that it works. Instead, I'm going to show you what the research really says about apple cider vinegar and then explain the evidence-based strategies we use in my clinic to help people lose weight fast and control their blood sugar levels. So apple cider vinegar is made from crushed apples that have been fermented, and during this fermentation process, the sugars in the apples are converted into acetic acid. The basic process is the same as other types of vinegars, like balsamic vinegar and malt vinegar. They just start with different ingredients. So why is apple cider vinegar so popular? Well, over the past several decades, it has gained a reputation for having a number of powerful health benefits. The claims range from curing eczema to balancing the body's pH levels. Many of the claimed benefits have absolutely no research to back them up, but the picture is a bit more complex when it comes to lowering blood sugar levels and helping us lose weight. Here, there actually is some research, but unless you take a closer look, you can easily be led astray. So what does it show? Well, let's start by looking at blood sugar levels. When blood sugar levels are too high, it damages our blood vessels, and over time, this can lead to heart disease and damage other systems like our kidneys or our eyes. Blood sugar levels are an important health marker, so can apple cider vinegar help to lower it? Well, here's what the authors of the most recent meta-analysis found, and a meta-analysis is where the clinical trials are combined together and analyzed. The authors first considered the effects of apple cider vinegar on fasting glucose levels. This is a snapshot of our blood sugar levels after an overnight fast. Taking all of the studies they looked at together, they found that consuming apple cider vinegar reduced fasting glucose by about 8 milligrams per deciliter, which is around, on average, 10%. Now 10%, it sounds like a big deal, but we shouldn't get too excited yet, and here's why. Remember, we have to take a close look at the research. If we have a look at the available trials that this meta-analysis combined together, 5 out of the 8 trials were not blinded. So when we do clinical trials to figure out if something works or not, we should be doing double-blind trials, where the patients in the trial and the people performing the trial don't know if they're taking apple cider vinegar or the pretend placebo drink. Without blinding, the data can be incredibly biased, and we shouldn't rely on those results. But combining that garbage data together in a meta-analysis only multiplies the issue, so-called garbage in, garbage out. And this isn't me just being pedantic. If influencers are recommending that you spend your time and money on something to help lose weight, there should be very, very good evidence that you're going to see significant results. But that's not what we have here with apple cider vinegar, especially when we consider that the remaining 3 out of the 8 studies were small and had other problems with bias. So we don't know the true effect that apple cider vinegar has on our fasting glucose levels, and it's okay to say that we don't know something. But there's a different measure of blood sugar that's clinically more important than fasting glucose levels, and it's called our HbA1c. So instead of giving us a snapshot of our blood glucose levels, HbA1c helps to give us an average over the past 2 to 3 months. So what impact did the studies find here? Well, they found a very small impact, but again, the underlying trials have significant issues. So for the reasons we've discussed, here's what the authors of the meta-analysis ultimately concluded. They say, we found that apple cider vinegar consumption might beneficially affect glycemic status and lipid parameters in adults. However, due to some limitations, the findings should be interpreted with caution. Certainly not a strong reason for any influencer to waste your time by promoting apple cider vinegar, especially when we have other ways to control blood sugar that have much stronger evidence of effectiveness, and we'll come to those in a moment. Now, let's also have a look at apple cider vinegar's impact on weight loss, because here it's slightly different to what we found for blood sugar levels. One study involving obese subjects in Japan examined the effects of drinking diluted apple cider vinegar twice a day. This study had 3 groups, a control group, and then one group having a low dose and the other group having a higher dose. And importantly, all 3 study groups were blinded, as were the scientists who carried out the study. After 3 months, the low-dose group lost an average of about 2.6 pounds. The average loss for the high-dose group, though, was 4.4 pounds. Now, the authors admit that this amount of reduction isn't very big, but it's an intriguing result that there might be a small beneficial effect on weight loss. Another, more recent study focuses on overweight young people in Lebanon. As with the previous study, they created groups that drank different amounts of apple cider vinegar diluted in 8 ounces of water. The placebo group drank water designed to mimic the look and taste of vinegar drinks. After 3 months of daily consumption, those drinking apple cider vinegar lost between 11 and 16 pounds on average, and there was no significant change for the placebo group. So the effect size is larger here, yet there are still some reasons for caution. Again, the number of participants wasn't very large in the study, and we don't know what the longer-term results might be from daily consumption of apple cider vinegar. Overall, the current research results are interesting, but it's still very limited. Remember, to be recommending any health strategy, there should be overwhelming evidence, and while we do have a couple of trials showing small positive results, they are short-term studies with very few participants. Certainly not enough to be recommending apple cider vinegar to people, which is why the clinical guidelines don't recommend it. And if you'd like to get weekly health research summaries on topics like this and extra insights straight to your inbox, sign up with the link in the pinned comment. So what approaches are there to lower blood sugar levels and help with weight loss that are supported by robust evidence? Well, first we need to focus on getting our diet right, and then later in the video, I'll talk about other strategies in addition to diet that help with weight loss. It's important to understand that the most fundamental requirement of losing weight is lowering our calorie intake. But for most of my patients, strategies like counting calories isn't useful. Instead, once they focus on what they're eating, they find naturally that they reduce their calorie intake at the same time. So let me explain how this works. I give my patients a simple guide to the best diet for weight loss. We prioritize plenty of lean protein from healthy sources like chickpeas, lentils, peas, beans, and lean cuts of meat, as well as low-fat, high-protein dairy. We also eat lots of whole, fresh fruit and non-starchy vegetables to increase fiber intake. We drink water and not sugary beverages or alcohol, and we watch out for hidden sources of sugar like sauces. So let's break all of this down. The clinical guidelines state that high-protein diets, in which at least 20% of daily calories come from protein, have been recommended for the treatment of obesity because they help us feel fuller and stimulate the body to burn more calories. High-protein diets also seem to help people who have lost weight to keep that weight off. And when we add in the other guidelines, we see even more benefit. The Mediterranean diet, for example, is the kind of eating pattern that I recommend to my patients. Now, you certainly don't have to adopt this particular diet, but since it's so popular, we've got a ton of study data on it. A recent meta-analysis concludes that it's the healthiest dietary pattern available to tackle obesity and prevent several other problems like cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. The Mediterranean diet is an excellent approach to lose weight for 3 reasons. The first is that it has been shown to be effective for weight loss. One meta-analysis looked at 16 randomized clinical trials involving over 3,000 participants. That's vastly more participants than the meta-analysis that we looked at for apple cider vinegar. It found an average weight loss of 3.8 pounds more than the control group, and this was without trying to reduce the calories that they ate. With calorie restriction, the average weight loss was 8.5 pounds more than the control. The second reason is that the Mediterranean diet is effective for maintaining weight loss, and this is essential since many diets give a quick benefit that disappears over the long term. For example, a study enrolled people who had lost significant weight over the prior 12 months, and then it followed them up for another 12 months and scored their diet in terms of how closely it matched the Mediterranean diet. Those whose eating patterns were closely related to the Mediterranean diet had double the likelihood of maintaining their weight loss. The third reason is that the Mediterranean diet is associated with several other positive health outcomes. Evidence suggests that it reduces risks of heart disease, certain cancers, and mental disorders like depression. So what about blood sugar? Well, from another large meta-analysis, the answer is yes. Again, the Mediterranean diet is just one example. The key is following the simple, broad patterns of high lean protein, lots of fresh fruits and non-starchy vegetables, unless you've got irritable bowel syndrome, low-fat, high-protein dairy, and avoiding sugary drinks. After getting diet right, the other key to significant and sustainable weight loss is activity. We can look for ways to include small doses of activity or exercise snacks throughout the day. For example, I might do push-ups or sit-ups in between seeing my patients at the clinic. So on busy days where we can't get to the gym, adding exercise snacks throughout the day has a massive impact. But what if our weight is still above target, despite optimizing our diet and lifestyle factors? Well, in that case, we can consider adding medications to help on our weight loss journey. And taking a medication is not a failure, it's just another tool to help us reach our health goals. In my clinic, due to financial considerations, I often try metformin first with my patients, where we slowly build up to a dose of 1.5 to 2 grams of metformin a day. It's been used for decades as a treatment for type 2 diabetes, and it's very cheap. Plus, there's good evidence that from the 1.5 gram dose, metformin has a weight loss effect. But please don't confuse this with longevity influencers who are otherwise fit and well, but take metformin to so-called extend their lifespan. I've made previous videos about this, and the TLDR is that if a person is of a healthy weight and is a non-diabetic, the risks of metformin outweigh the benefits. Now, what about Ozempic? Ozempic is a class of medication called GLP-1, and GLP-1 medications were first approved in 2005 for the treatment of type 2 diabetes, but it's only been recently that their popularity has exploded because of their weight loss effects. Now, unless these medications are handled with care, they can cause significant issues like nausea, vomiting, dehydration, and muscle loss, just to name a few. Now, I regularly prescribe GLP-1 medications in my clinic, and it's a game changer for some of my patients, but I do it in a very controlled way, and I've got a lot to say on this topic, which I'll cover in my next video, so make sure to subscribe. Now, coming back to diet, as I said, we should be prioritizing getting plenty of protein, but there's been some controversy about how much we need and whether high levels of protein are even good for us. So make sure to check out this next video here to see what the latest research tells us.